Hey up everybody and welcome back. Right, well, as I mentioned at the end of last week's video, we're going to carry on with some small stuff because I've got to get everything ready for painting and I'm waiting for parts for the engine. It's raining again. I think it was raining the day I did the last bit of last week's video, and in fact we're expecting some snow, would you believe? Right, so what are we going to do? The reason I've got this tank on here is I'm going to put the fork shrouds in with the ears for the headlamp so that I can do the stops. I've also got to weld that little piece on the bottom leg on this side for the front brake cable to go into. So I've pulled the C15 forks out so we can see how big it is and what size the hole's got to be and everything like that. It's not threaded, but it's not a through hole. It has a stop in the bottom so the cable doesn't just go straight through. So we've got to get all that measured and make that. Probably do, as I mentioned also, the sprocket, because I had a little disappointment there, which you'll see when we get to the wheel. But I've come up with a plan for that, so there's some lathe work involved and we'll be able to do that. Alright, so let's go and put the thing on the bottom of the fork leg and then we'll put the shrouds in here and do this job. Alright, this is what we have got to reproduce here. So we already have the leg part, we just need this bit on the end. Now I don't know if you can see, a little bit of cloth to just clean that off, but this is flat on this side and then it's sort of the equivalent of double thickness here. It's a casting, so of course they've made it that way, but what we are going to do is, instead of just putting the cable piece on the end of the already existing mudguard stay mounting bracket on the bottom of the other fork, we're going to actually first of all put it on a piece of flat which will correspond to this extra thickness, and then the whole thing can be welded, well, or bronzed on all the way around here, as well as having this piece made. So as I mentioned, we've got two different sizes of holes here. We've got this hole that the inner cable goes through. We've also got this hole, which is full of muck at the moment, goes down to about there, so there's a stop for the outer cable. So rather than measure them, I just sized them with a couple of drills. It seemed to be the quickest way to do it. So we'll get a piece of round stock. It wants to be, oh, rain and lorries. We're doing well this morning, aren't we? It's flat on this side. I'm not going to bother making it flat. So it's a piece of 1/2 inch round. So we'll get a piece of 1/2 inch round, cut it to be, I was going to make a drawing, but I don't really think we need to go to that, 3/4 of an inch long. So we'll get a piece of 1/2 inch round, we'll drill it all the way through with this, then we'll drill it through to, well, let's say 1/2 inch and leave a 1/4 inch of the other thickness with this. I think what I might do, if I've got a suitable end mill, is after I've drilled it, I'll run an end mill down, because this of course is going to give us, I don't think it really, no, it doesn't matter. This is going to give us a little angled bottom rather than a flat one for the cable to come to. If I've got an end mill, I can put it in the chuck of the lathe and we'll just see if we can square the bottom off. So let me go and find some round stock and a small piece of 1/8 plate. I think 1/8 will be fine for that. Yeah. And as I say, we will make this. We'll make a piece of 1/8 plate. We'll bronze it to the plate. Then we'll clamp the plate there with a hole in, suitable hole, which I guess is 5/16. And then bronze that on. And then that's that job. Now I didn't film drilling a couple of holes because it's not exactly exciting, but here's the pieces. So there's our thimble, if you like, which is drilled that size at that end, smaller size here. Now we're going to have a slot in this, of course, and there's our piece which is going to be welded onto there. Oops, that way around. That will go on there, and that will be on there like that. Alright, so we will bronze that onto the backing piece, and then we can hold it in the mill to put the slot in. So let's do that. First of all, before we start here, I just watched the last bit of video. Let me apologise for the rain noise, but you know, particularly in the winter, if I didn't come out whenever it was raining, we'd never get a video, so sorry about that. Anyway, I've got to buy some more slitting saws, because the only three I've got, they're all basically 1/16 of an inch, and this wants to be a little wider than that, so I'm going to have to try and do 2 slices with it. So let's have a look. That's probably a bit fast. Up a few now and make it the right thickness. Right, now what I'm going to do is go and find an old cable and see if that will work. Here we go, this is a brake cable. No, not quite. Let me work on it a bit more. Alright, we're set now, I think. Yeah, there we go. That goes in nicely. Right, next thing to do is to bronze this onto the bottom of the fork leg. So we put our slot in, and just to show you this works, look, that cable goes in and then that goes up to there nice and tight. So the next thing to do, and if any of you were worried that I was holding this upside down, the thimble, before, it's alright. So we're going to put that in there like that, and we're going to hold it on This is 5/16 BSA, so it's 26 threads per inch. Come on now, be a good boy. I just had a bolt screwed in there, but it wasn't long enough. Oh, maybe that one's BSF. No, you see, it's just messing me about because you're watching. See, now it's going there as good as gold. So we'll just put that on. Hold that in place long enough for me to tack it on there. A couple of blobs on, then we'll take that off and finish up putting that on. I thought, you know, really I could bolt this on, but I decided I'm going to bronze it on anyway. And when I've filled it all up with bronze and shaped it, it'll look fine. So let me put some bronze on it. Well, there's that finished, all bronzed in. The bronze sort of smoothed out a little bit. So that's that done. Interesting to note, actually. See, these are all bronzed on as well. In fact, this part, it looks as if they put a tack weld in to hold it and then basically braze it rather than bronze it. Okay, so let's get the what are we doing next? Oh, we'll do the steering stops. Now I've put the fork top shrouds on there. I just checked them with a headlamp as well. That's fine. So what I've done is I've got it. It's up against this tank. I'll put a little bit of cardboard or something in. This tank I think is probably going to be slightly bigger than the C15, but we're going to work with this because using this with this blade along the center line, I set this to a straight line through the two fork tops, and I've been and checked it. Of course, the steering lock isn't as much as on, say, the Untitled Trials bike, but it's more than is on the BSA, and it's a lot more than is on the Monster. So I think that will be fine. So now we're going to look at what we're going to need to do to put some stops on. Now then, we're not just going to be able to put a couple of pegs in here because, as you can see, we're a long way away from being up against the frame. So what it really needs is an extension or something to come out and go around there. So let me give this a good looking at and see if I can come up with an idea. Alright, this is what I've come up with. It is a pin, but it's bent. So I've drilled a 5/16 hole in there. Pin goes in there, sticks through a little bit so we can bronze it in nice and tight. And then that swings round, hits the frame. Voila! Very nice. And it's 5/16, it's actually 4140, so that's going to be good and strong. So let me make up another one of those. This one it was a bit difficult to decide where the hole was from there, so what I did was I drilled a very small pilot hole from the top. It actually went in slightly at an angle because I couldn't get the drill straight in, but I was able to use that to start the 5/16 to come up. But now I can make a little template for the bottom to transfer it to the other side and make another one of them. So let me go and do that. Right, there they are, just bronzed in place. I'll do them properly when I can take the yoke off. But you can see it there, a similar one on the other side. Let me pull you out. And if I get these centered, I can slide that down, roll it that way, get that centered. Now what I'm also thinking is I'm going to put a couple of little rubber buffers on them, plus if they're slightly out I can tap them in or out to adjust them. But that's it, that bump is hitting the frame, not the tank. So that's that job done. Next thing I think is going to be that rear brake drum and sprocket. So we got the sprocket, I'll show you this. I managed to find, I only had one 5/16, but that's it's the little rubber caps you put on the end of vacuum pipes. They're nice and thick. So that now, that's what I'll do with it when it's painted. I'll put one of those on either side. Okay, hub. Well, brake drum. Alright, rear sprocket. So, quick recap. The rear sprocket forms part of the brake hub. But on the Trials bike, it was a bolt-on one. Different brake hub. So as you can see, somebody welded this. What they did was they turned the sprocket off and they got a bigger sprocket, turned the centre out of that, mounted it on there. They did a really good job, it's perfect. Welded it there, sort of stitch welded it and stitch welded it on the back, and actually the stitch welds, if I put my finger there, you'll see, are opposite. So there's a stitch weld here, one on the back there, one here, one on the back there. So this sprocket, it isn't bad, but the thing is, as I say, I'm planning to sell the bike, and if I sell the bike like this, it means that when this sprocket wears, the next owner has got to buy a drum, and then he won't get the same size sprocket. This is a 56 and the standard is a 46. Now I'm putting a slightly bigger sprocket on the gearbox. The only one I saw bigger was an 18 tooth. Although looking at an old B40 engine I've got over there, I can't quite get into measure it, but it looks as if that's 20 teeth. So anyway, we'll see. So an extra tooth on the front is like 2-3 teeth on the back. And this is also, we can keep the chain line right over the swinging arm. I might go down to 54 when I replace it, so it'll be about the same as the standard bike. Alright, so that's the way it was. Well, as I said, I had a slight disappointment because on eBay I saw a sprocket, a hub with the detachable sprocket. So I thought, great, fortunately it was only about $30. But as soon as I got it, I started looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. See, that should be up there. So it's actually about that there, as you can see, is so much deeper than that at the back. And in fact, there's so much of a difference that I can't get the wheel in. So obviously, I don't know if they made, well, even if they made the swinging arm wider, it still doesn't alter the fact that this is moving the chain away. So I went back to my original plan. I didn't want to go into all sorts of research about hubs and swinging arms and all the rest of it and find out that to fit this I've got to change something else, and I've already got the rims and the spokes and everything. So what we're going to do, as I say, is go back to my original plan, which was to make this to have a detachable sprocket. Now, we can't just sort of turn this off, put some holes in and bolt the sprocket to it, because the sprocket line is there. If I bolt it on here, it'll be 1/4 of an inch out this way, 1/4 of an inch out that way. So the sprocket, as he did here, has got to be on that line, which means what we're going to have to do is mount something on the back that the sprocket can bolt to. So as I mentioned, lathe work. What we're going to do first of all is put this in the lathe. Let me pull you out. I've got a feeling you're missing some of this. We're going to put this in the lathe, first of all that way on and then that way on. And I'm going to face off these welds, because what I want to see, I mean they look good, I want to see how much penetration he's got. Because if he's got full penetration, then basically this piece has become one with that piece. And I can just then turn this down to be just slightly bigger, because there's not a lot of space there. I might not, it depends. So anyway, we're going to turn that down. Then what we're going to do is turn a ring to go on the back. And that ring will have an inner diameter, the same as the hub, so it will go on there tightly. And on this side, it will be wider than the part we leave here. So then I'm going to get a sprocket with an internal diameter the same as whatever we cut this to be, and that will go on against that backing ring and be on the right chain line. Okay, so I'm pretty sure the drum is cast iron, although as I say it seems to have welded fine, but we're going to see about the penetration. It might be well penetrated into this and not into that, because this is just going to be steel. It's going to be hard steel as well for when we come to do the lathe work. So what I need now is something to make this ring on the back. So I had a little rummage around and I came up with an old sprocket, which is just a little too small on the inside. So we're going to turn this out until it's the right side to slip on there, to turn that off. It's a lot of work, but then we'll turn that off and that will be our backing ring. So first thing we'll do is we'll mount this up, and let's get these faces smooth so we can look at the weld. I've got this set up to do this side first. I put an indicator on here to make sure that was flat, and I've checked to make sure that it will spin without catching anything, because it looked a bit close. So I'll do this side and then I'll turn it over and I'll grip it on the inside of the drum. Same thing, make sure it's true on the face, and then we'll turn it off. So let me start it going, and then as normal, I'm not going to show you the thing just going round and round and round. I've lost my safety glasses. Where have I put them? Anyway, as I was saying, I won't show you going round and round and round. You know what's going to happen, and I'll show you it at the end. Oh, there they are. So let's make sure we're not catching on anything. Would help if I fastened the tool down. Right, I'll keep on doing that. Now there it is with that turned off. I don't know what filler rod he used, but by God it was hard. I had to turn the speed down, but they seem to be, you know, there's no crack, there's nothing. It seems to have penetrated into that well. So next thing to do is to make the ring that goes on that. So I've got to get the OD. I've got to do it old-fashioned way because I don't have a pair of vernier calipers big enough for this. I suppose I'll have to buy myself a pair, but I'll get that. We'll do it with this, see, and then we'll go on there like so. See what it says. I haven't done it. I'll do it a couple of times to make sure I got the right measurement. 6 5/16 it's saying. I'm going to show you something else in a minute as well. Six and 5/16 again. Alright, if you're wondering about how much space we're going to have here, how to make the sprocket, here is, well, that's dark. Anyway, I can see that a bit better now. There's the actual sprocket. See how big that brake drum is. The bolt heads are only just under the chain, so we're fine putting a very thin sprocket on, or a not very wide sprocket, whichever way you want to put it. So I'll measure that a couple more times, make sure it's certain, and then we'll set this up in the ring and see if we can find a trepanning tool. So I've turned the jaws around so I can fit that in, and it struck me I don't need a trepanning tool at this point, though I will show you what that is and explain it. I can just bore this, so I've got it set so it's out of the jaws, and I've checked to make sure that that will go through without catching on anything. So as before, we will start you off, and then I'll finish the job. Sorry, I'm getting in your way here. I'll finish the job and then show you it when it's done. Then we'll see if it'll fit onto the brake drum. Right, I was going to press the button on the camera then. It's not that button I want to press, is it? Seem to have a lot of backlash in this. Backwards, so let's see how this goes. Well, that didn't cut too badly, so I don't think this will be a hard job. But what I'm going to do, this lathe has a stop that I can put here. Because I am close to the jaws, I'm going to put that through there. Yeah, that's alright. and then put that stop there so we can't accidentally overrun and catch this too in the chuck. Alright, as I say, I'll turn you off now and finish turning this. Now I've bored out the centre, and what I've also done, I noticed things here weren't exactly true. So this is a machine face, so I put it in the lathe that way on and put an indicator on here to make sure I was dead right. And I took a little few thou off there, and I think there, you see, look, see, it was slightly out of round. This is cast iron, so I didn't take much off that, just enough to bring it close. So there's that on there now. Alright, so what we want to do next is decide exactly how much of this we're going to cut off. Now, see these? I'm thinking that I put that on, and these would be, I'm going to bronze it on. I'm going to put a little bit of an edge on, bronze it on. But I'm thinking they would be a perfect place to put some pins in. Because don't forget, we're not so much worried about it moving this way as moving, we don't want it to move that way. So I think I'm going to make some pins to go in there. The hole will be drilled the other side, we'll put the pin in, and then we'll bronze it up, and that will lock the whole thing in place with a bit of bronze around there, and that way this side we can keep a completely flat face. Alright, so the next thing is the trifiding tool, because I am not going to turn that all the way in, I don't think. Should I? No, we'll use a trifiding tool, I think, and go into it. That'll be the easiest way to do it. So, I think it's lunchtime. We'll be back to this shortly. I haven't gone to lunch yet because it just struck me, and I've just checked. I kept saying trifide instead of trepan, and actually they are both surgical terms. Trepanning you might know from lopping pieces off people's skull, which is the correct term. Trifide I happen to know because once when I was sawing with a hacksaw, as it went through, I went bang, and I really belted my thumbnail against the vise. And during the night it got to be excruciatingly painful because of the blister that was underneath it. So I popped along to the local casualty, and the doctor there said to the nurse, which unnerved me a little at the moment, go and get me a paper clip and a spirit lamp. And he trifided this, and he explained to the nurse, and I was of course there listening, that the reason he used a paper clip was he didn't want to go through and jam into my finger. So he heated the end of the paper clip till it was red hot, and of course it has a nice flat end, and he very carefully burnt a hole through the top of my nail, and as he went through, the blood spurted out and the pain went. Brilliant. So that's what trifide is. Alright, now I'm going to go and have my lunch. Now the next thing we need to know is how much of this we're going to cut off and how wide this needs to be. So what I've done is, this is a piece of 428 chain. I put that on, put a mark on. Right, that's how much we need to clear the chain. Now, I looked at that other sprocket, sprocket on the big hub, and it was actually only 3/8 of an inch deep. So that was only, that is from the base of the, that would only be, well, that would be, that's 3/4, 5/8, sorry, it was 5/8 deep. That's how big that sprocket was, and that was for a 520 chain. So I think we can probably go to about there, right? And that is going to give us, that's 3/8. Is that enough space to put a 1/4 inch bolt in? Hang on a second. Alright, I think I know what I'm doing. I'm going to cut this off so there is 3/8 of that left. Then when that's on there, if I make these pins, actually I could put pins in here to get them exactly right, but if I pin it as well as putting a little bronze on, or even some weld, who knows, then 3/8 from there, right, 3/8 from there is that, and that gives me a full 5/8 to this sprocket, which, as you can see, is slightly smaller. This is a 54, and that other sprocket was only 5/8 wide to take a 520 chain on a much bigger bike. So that's what we're going to do. That's stage one. We're going to take this off at 3/8, which is just fractionally bigger than he had it, because there's a 1/4 inch. So we're going to take 3/8 to give us a chance to put a decent pin in. And actually I can turn it down and we can check it with this thing on the back, and if it doesn't look right, I can take a little bit more off. So, trepanning. What is trepanning? Trepanning is rather like parting off, right? When you're parting off, you have a tool that just goes in there and slowly cuts through to cut a piece off. Well, trepanning is basically exactly the same, only you're doing it on the face. So your tool is going to be here, and it's going to go in and cut a ring off. But the thing about the trepanning tool is that here, see, if you make your tool that width, when the tool's here, it's exactly the same width above it and exactly the same width below. But here, right, if your tool's there, then above it, here, look, it's getting narrower, and it's that side's moving away. Below it, that side's moving away, that side's moving in. So you've got to cut a tool which will take that into account. So you have the cutting edge there, and because you're going to have a curve like that, you've got to have a tool that will go like that, so it'll fit in. So that's the way they're ground. Right, now I was given a big box of high-speed steel tooling by my friend Bob Slater up in Canada, and I had a search around in there, and I found a couple that had already been made as trepanning tools. See the? So I'm going to try a high-speed steel one, because I think we should be alright. The weld is hard on there, but certainly that steel wasn't that hard when we do this one. Actually, it was the wrong tool I showed you. I'm using this one, which is a bit beefier than that. So let me get it mounted and see what we can see. Right, battery's about to give out on me, and the spare one I've got in my pocket isn't charged. So let's see what we can do. We're all lined up where we want to be, and I've slowed this down even more. I put it in sort of neutral to get things right, and I forget to put it into gear. Alright. I'm just going to hand feed this. just stop so I can, you see it's starting to cut in there. Starting being the opposite word, operative word, it's not doing a lot, so I might have to rethink using this tool. But let me carry on a bit longer and see what happens. Right, well that tool wasn't working at all, so what I've done is I've actually changed to this super duper cut-off tool that I was given by another friend, Chris Arnold, because, well, you can't really see it, but it's a very small area that's cutting, and it's quite wide, it's 1/8 of an inch, so I don't think I'm having any clearance problems there. Where I am having clearance problems is with this up against this rim. Now if the worst comes to worst, I think I could do it by turning the tool upside down and sending this round the other way. We'll see. So let me press on. It's cutting really nicely because it is carbide, but anyway, let me see what I can do. Well, I ground a little bit off the tool holder so I can go further in, but I'm still going to come up against some clearance problems. But it's cutting that beautifully. I don't know if you can see the groove. There's a little bit of chatter. We'll see. I suppose I could maybe turn it round and do it the other side. But anyway, again, let me press on. I turned it right down to 40 RPM and the high-speed steel tool worked. There we go. However, I did screw up a little bit, put the wider tool in, and I forgot to take account for it, so I've actually taken a little bit more off this than I want. Well, about 16, but it's going to be fine if I pin it the way I'm thinking of doing it. So let's tidy this up, take it off and see what the backing plate looks like. So there it is, all turned down. As I say, I've still got enough there for the pinning I'm going to use. So that's going to go on there, like that. And then that is going to be the backing plate. So we'll turn off a certain amount of that, and then the sprocket will bolt to there, and that'll keep it in the right line. Now we're set up to make our ring. So it struck me I could make this bigger than I needed, and then when I actually get a sprocket I can see what's what, because I can always put the brake drum back in here and turn this down a bit. So I'm going to cut it off just inside where I marked that a 428 chain would go. So we'll leave it at the 40 RPM. Oh, God. Yeah, right. And I'm using that cut-off tool. Okay, let me turn you off because, as you know, I'm conserving some battery at the moment. And that's the last of the lathe work done. Bink! So, there's that. I've put a little chamfer on one side. There we go. And there is our backing ring. So what I'm going to do is drill this and put some hard pins in. And then we'll put some, what we'll do is we'll put some weld on the back there to hold it. I don't know whether to drill those out. I think it'd be a bit big, so I'm going to drill in between them and put 1/8 inch hard pins in. I put 6 1/8 inch pins in and some weld. That's a lot of strength. So that's the, as I say, the lathe work done. The next thing is to put it on the mill, put it on my, don't know, I'm going to clamp it down, but put it on my rotary table, and then we can drill the holes for the pins because it will go around, and we can, you know, 6 pins, 60 degrees, bink, 60 degrees, bink. That'll be nice, nice and easy. And then the same with drilling some 1/4 inch holes there to mount the sprocket to. Okay, that's enough for today. Alright, we're not quite done for the day. I just thought I'd try this. I've put a couple of parallels under there to hold the rim up. And of course that's the sprocket we cut off. The hole's a little bit big because it's got the width of the cutting tool. But the idea is, see, that's going to go on, bolt onto that, and then we're level with there. Chain's exactly where it was. Chain line's exactly where it was. But now we have a detachable sprocket for this hub. I maybe could have made that to be a bit bigger, but there wasn't much to take off. Because as I say, this is a 56. But I think we'll be fine. 1/4 inch, 6 or 8, whatever, 1/4 inch bolts in there. Perfect. Alright, now I'm done. Well, I've just edited this video, well, a little bit of editing that I do, and it's amply long enough for this week. So we'll bring it to a close. Next week we'll finish off this brake drum, and we'll also do the wheels. I'll go over again, sort of measuring offsets and spoke patterns and things like that. So until then, thank you for watching. Thank you to all our 7,000 plus subscribers. That's really amazing. And thank you for all the comments. So until next week, you stay safe and enjoy yourselves.